Hi, this is Luis Souza, and I'm here today with a very smart and scientific guest who just launched a very interesting book, The Science of Eating Raw. So we are here today with Swayze Foster, and she has a blog, a very interesting blog, Fit on Raw, in which she gives many tips and a lot of knowledge, very quality, high quality content on the raw vegan diet. And she has also the Rocking Raw Club, in which you can have some support to start on a raw vegan diet. So, getting back here to my face, I want to welcome you, Swayze Foster. I'm very pleased to have you here today.
Oh, thank you so much. It's a pleasure to be here.
Okay, Swayze. Well, first things first. I'd like to know, I'd like you to tell us something about your story. How did you get in the raw food diet?
So basically, I was already eating a vegan diet for a little while, or mostly vegan diet, and then a vegan diet for a few months. And my health wasn't where I thought it should be or where I expected it to be. And specifically, I was struggling with anemia, and I was tired all the time and fatigued. And I was, only 19, so I felt like I didn't feel like I was 19. And so it was a struggle for me. And so I, kind of learned about the raw food diet and tried it your standard kind of high fat, lots of nuts, lots of oils, not a whole lot of fruit type of way. And that way didn't work for me really at all. I didn't even stick to it long because I knew it was so high in fat. And when I actually calculated how high in fat it was like 40% of total calories. I just knew based on research that I had done before that this was not a healthy way to eat. And it was higher, way higher than the fat that I had been consuming since before going raw. And so, and for other reasons, like I just thought, okay, this raw food diet is like a fad thing. And then I happened to, kind of learn about it more and learned about a better way to do the diet, a diet focused on fruits and vegetables and lower in fat. And so I started doing that, and changes were almost immediate. My restless leg syndrome was gone. My anemia was gone in just a few weeks. I was no longer fatigued. I didn't need a nap anymore. And so basically I've been doing it ever since because I got just such great results and have been able to maintain those results.
And now you are launching a very special book, I think, because the science of eating raw, and you have so many references in there. I mean, it's huge. It's quite like Hippocrates saying, "Let food be thy medicine, and medicine be thy food." And you are a philosopher. I mean, you have a background in philosophy. Please tell us something about your book.
Yeah, so I just released it just at the end of last month. It's called The Science of Eating Raw. And it took me a while to write, it took me over a year. And part of the reason for that is just because there's a lot of research that went into the book. And this was really an area I wanted to differentiate myself from other, raw food books and raw food resources, which tend to kind of rely on pseudoscience or just very grandiose claims with no sort of backing whatsoever, and often on faulty claims that have never been proven. And so I really wanted to do a book that was the opposite of that and really show, based on science, a raw food diet that works and a raw food diet that will help you lose weight and increase your energy and have better digestion and all these, and prevent and avoid major diseases and just feel great on a day-to-day basis, the way I've been able to do with a raw food diet. So I wrote this book. It's got over 350 scientific references. It's got over 600 references in all. So that was really the bulk of the time that it took for me to write the book. So yeah, I'm really proud of it. I'm really happy of it, and yeah.
And I'm very curious now to know your age because you said that you were 19 and now you say, well, I spent 1 year to make this book. So you are 20 now, right?
I'm 25 actually.
Because you look so young.
I
I would
know.
say
I get that a
20.
lot.
Okay. And well, we are talking science here, right? And then I would like to know your opinion about what they are teaching in as nutrition science in schools and universities.
Well, unfortunately, there isn't much teaching with regard to nutrition in either elementary school or high school or universities, depending on your degree and what you're going into. Of course, if you're at a university and training to be a dietitian or a nutritionist, obviously you're going to get a lot more nutrition training than you are if you are going into, I don't know, English. You want to be an English teacher or something. You're really not going to get any. So it depends on your specialty. But even if you are going to be a nutritionist or a dietitian, obviously there are things that are being taught that are just incorrect. A major one that is very harmful for a lot of people, is has to do with diabetes. And whenever most people, whenever they think diabetes, they think sugar. So if diabetes is basically caused by sugar, diabetes type 2, I'm talking about, not diabetes type 1.
Yes.
So if you eat a whole lot of sugar, then it's going to spike your blood sugar and you're going to end up with diabetes, or you're going to complicate your diabetes if you're already diabetic or pre-diabetic. And this is just false. It's been shown to be false. Studies have actually shown this to be false in both rats and in people. And we now know that type 2 diabetes can be reversed. And this is the most important thing, I think, because most people think once you have it, you're stuck with it, and you better hope that you don't have to get something amputated down the line. I mean, it's really awful. People just think, I have diabetes, I'm going to be injecting myself with insulin for the rest of my life. And again, with type 2 diabetes, with adult onset diabetes, it's just not true. It can be reversed. And this is something that's been, shown. Dr. Neil Barnard, in his book, his program for reversing diabetes, it has to do with the fat intake. It has to do with eating an unhealthy, fat-filled, processed food. Yes, lots of sugar in your standard American diet, but it's also accompanied by lots of fat. And so what happens is you have all this fat that surrounds the insulin, it surrounds the cells, it surrounds the glucose in your blood. And so the insulin can't transport it has a hard time transporting the sugar directly into your cells, which is what it would do if you didn't have a whole lot of fat floating around your system. So it's really the fat, it's not the sugar. I think this is one of the biggest misconceptions today, within the nutrition world. And it's something that slowly but surely is being changed when more and more people start to see that, wow, this is actually reversible, and it's not really the sugar, especially healthy sugar like from fruit and whole foods. It's actually the fat. If I can just get my fat intake down, I don't really have to worry about the sugar. So I think that's something huge that luckily is starting to change. People are starting to learn more and more about the truth about type 2 diabetes. Sorry, I have a cat.
I love your cat. I watched your videos and I love every time he appears. He, right? Or it's a she?
I have 3 actually. They're all boys.
Okay. Well, you were saying that, well, people can be malnourished and are malnourished in a standard diet, a standard American diet. But I learned from your sales page and from your site that people could be malnourished in a raw vegan diet as well, right?
Oh yeah, definitely. And I think it's a little bit different because usually when we think of, say, like your standard American diet, a very meat rich and processed food rich diet, we think of people having too much of a lot of things, too much animal protein, too much fat, too much sugar, too much salt, all these different things. Of course, they have nutritional deficiencies too, especially when you talk about folate and vitamin C's, lots of different vitamins. But usually we think of the excess. When you talk about a raw food diet, usually it's going to be the opposite. Unless you're eating a very, very fat-rich diet, like I said, lots of nuts and avocados and oils and things. Usually when people are eating lots of fruits and vegetables, if they aren't following some key rules and doing things correctly, usually you're going to see the opposite. You're going to see some sort of deficiency, usually in certain key minerals, and very often, unfortunately, in B12 if people are not supplementing with B12. Also in vitamin D if people aren't getting enough sunshine, trace minerals, like I said, like chromium, selenium, things like this. So it's a little bit different than what we're used to with standard American diet, but it is still an issue. And like I said, it's an issue with people who are really trying to do the diet the right way. And I've seen it just in myself trying to do the diet the right way and still, making certain, key mistakes.
One question that I think it's very controversial. Why do some people get fatter? Even on a low-fat, high-fruit raw vegan diet?
Yeah, so it really, I know people don't want to hear this, but it has to do with calories. It always has to do with calories. Based on the evidence we have today, if you eat more calories than you take in, you're going to gain weight. That's just the fact of the matter. And I personally had that same experience. I actually was able to gain weight on a low-fat, high-fruit diet, not eating a lot of fat at all, below 10% of total calories, eating nothing but fruits, vegetables, nuts, and seeds. And I actually was able to gain body fat on that diet simply by eating too much fruit and eating way above the amount of calories that I was burning. So it definitely is possible. Yes, I realize most people are not going to be able to gain weight on a diet of fruits and vegetables, nuts and seeds, because these foods are very low in calories compared to what we're used to. You have to eat a lot of food. We're talking, 8, 9, 10 pounds of food or more for most people a day. So it's a lot of food that we're talking about here. So most people are simply not going to be able to eat enough to actually gain weight. And the people who do gain weight, they're not going to be able to get obese. Even when I gained weight, I didn't gain a whole lot of weight, but I did gain several pounds above the weight that I should have been and had some other health complications as well due to this excess weight. So it definitely is possible. And again, it has to do with the calories. Now, I'm not saying that we have to restrict calories, because I definitely don't restrict my caloric intake, but we have to eat a raw food diet in such a way that we don't have to restrict calories. We have to eat a raw food diet so that we are satiated on that diet and we aren't looking for more and more and more food to the point where we start eating above our caloric limit and we start gaining weight.
I see. Other thing that you mentioned in your blog is that the raw vegan movement should change. What kind of change do you think it should be done in this movement?
Yeah, well, I already talked about it a little bit, just, making these kind of big claims without having any backing whatsoever, saying things because we heard someone else say it, and they heard someone else say it, and they heard someone else say it. And, I think we've all been guilty of this. I know when I first started Raw, and even when I first started my website, I said certain things because someone who I respected had said it. And then, since then I've gone on to actually research and learn, well, no, that's actually very wrong. That's actually very incorrect. A perfect example is B12. Even today, a lot of people within the raw food movement and just the vegan movement as a whole say that, look, you don't need B12 as long as you're eating lots of organic produce and you don't wash your produce religiously and you live very healthfully and you don't drink alcohol or take antibiotics, then you're going to have plenty of B12. You're going to get plenty from your food, and the bacteria in your digestive tract is going to create plenty and you're going to be fine. And there's simply no evidence for this whatsoever. In fact, we have evidence to the contrary. Many vegans and raw vegans who do not supplement with B12 are deficient in B12. And this is very, very serious because B12 can cause irreversible neurological damage. This is not just some silly little thing we're talking about here. We're talking about something extremely serious and something that people can suffer from. So, I think that's a really good example of just one of the ways that the raw food movement, needs to change. We need to really start basing things on available data and on science and also on other people's experiences. Again, we see so many people who say, I ate vegan for a time or I ate raw vegan for a time and I was getting, numbness in my hands, or I wasn't feeling quite well, so I started supplementing with B12, and now I feel great. I mean, that's really something. So I think that's a big thing, is just the B12 issues. I think focusing on nutrients is also very important, because I know many raw vegans prefer to, as long as you get in enough calories, as long as you're focusing on fruits, then you're going to be fine. Get in a little bit of greens and you'll be fine. You'll get in plenty of nutrients. And that's not necessarily true. We do need to pay a little bit more attention to the amount of micronutrients, the amount of vitamins and minerals that we're getting, and a little bit more attention to our diet to make sure that we're meeting all of our needs when it comes to vitamins and minerals and things like that. Just getting enough calories isn't enough. I mean, if we look at the standard American diet, they get plenty of calories, and yet they're still deficient in certain things. So I think that's another area that, kind of needs to change within the raw vegan movement. And also, and I think this has changed a lot in the last few years that I've seen, but the dogmatic approach that, either all raw or nothing. And luckily we have seen that change, but there are still some people who are very dogmatic when it comes to that, and that, 100% raw is really the only way. And I just don't think that's correct. As I talk about in my book, you can still eat an incredibly healthy diet by including cooked foods in your diet, as long as it's still, a high carbohydrate, low fat, whole foods based, diet. You're still going to be eating an incredibly healthy diet, and you're going to be able to lose weight and do all these incredible things on that diet. So, and I think this is really important for people to hear, because a lot of people simply can't eat a 100% raw food diet, or simply don't want to. They don't live in an area where they have enough variety or enough good quality of fruits and vegetables. The expense, they don't have enough money to afford it, because it is a more expensive diet. So, I think that's something that luckily is changing. More and more people are embracing that. A lot of people simply aren't going to eat a 100% raw food diet. So, we need to have options for them as well.
Yeah, and then, but still talking about the raw vegan movement, I see that there is a part of the movement that says, well, you can eat a high fat food. And the other part says low fat. What is the best, and what's the reason for that?
Yeah, so I definitely am for a lower fat diet, and which I believe is it's a healthier diet. The problem with eating a high fat diet, whether it's a high fat, Western diet, whether it's a high fat, raw vegan diet where you're talking about lots of avocados and nuts and seeds and things. One problem with this is that these foods, these higher calorie avocados, nuts and seeds, oils, coconut, these foods are not as nutrient dense as fruits and vegetables. And by that, I mean, they don't contain as many nutrients per calorie as fruits and vegetables, particularly vegetables, as these foods do. So when you focus on these more higher calorie, lower nutrient density foods, like nuts and seeds and avocados, you're really shortchanging yourself. So the focus really, if we want to eat the best diet and the optimal diet, we really want to focus on the best optimal foods, which are going to be fruits and vegetables, not nuts and seeds and avocados. So that right there really tells us that these foods need to be more limited than fruits and vegetables. The other problem is that when you talk about the omega-3 to 6 ratio, we know that omega-6 fats are pro-inflammatory, and omega-3 fats are opposite, basically. So they act as sort of antioxidants. They're better for us. And when you eat lots of avocados and nuts and seeds, what you'll find, and what a lot of raw foodists end up doing by eating this way, is they have an omega-3 to omega-6 fatty acid ratio that's completely out of whack. So basically you want a ratio of 6 to 3, of omega-6 to omega-3, of 1:1 to 4:1. So 4 times omega-6 to omega-3. And when you end up eating, lots of oils and nuts and seeds and avocados, you are inevitably going to end up with way too many omega-6s to omega-3s. Now, if you focus on walnuts and chia seeds and flax seeds, foods that are higher in omega-3s, then you're probably not gonna, you'll be fine. You won't have that problem. But most people, they're eating lots of almonds and Brazil nuts and pistachios and avocados and foods that don't have a great omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. So again, if you eat a lot of these foods, more than maybe an ounce or two a day, you're going to end up with a much higher omega-6 to omega-3 ratio. And we have plenty of evidence showing that that's just not a healthy way to eat. So again, that's another problem with eating a higher fat diet. There are other problems too. Again, I already talked about the blood sugar issue when you're eating lots of fat. But those are the major ones. And then, of course, there's the calorie issue. I mean, look, the more nuts and seeds and avocados you eat, the more calories you're going to consume. So it may be harder for some to maintain a healthy weight when they're eating lots of these high calorie foods.
I see. Well, besides your new book and other books you have already published, could you tell us something more about your products and services? Do you offer coaching, for instance?
I do. I'm not offering it at the moment, but I have my blog, which has, over like 400 articles and videos on there. It's all free information, and excuse me. And I have my mailing list that you can subscribe to, and you get my free report, the 4 principles of a raw diet, and a little transition to raw course that I have. That's a little email course. Again, that's all free. And then of course I have my new book, The Science of Eating Raw, that I've gotten some really awesome feedback on already, and it's really cool. I'm really excited about that. And I have a recipe book and a cravings book and my rock and roll program that you already mentioned. And so, yeah.
Well, final question. In one sentence, what kind of power do you get from being a raw vegan?
One sentence, okay.
Yeah.
I guess I get the power to be happy. I guess that's the most important thing, and it, trying to keep it one sentence, but just to explain it a little bit.
No, I love it. I love your sentence, because you summarized everything right. The power to be happy. Fantastic. Thank you so much, Swayze, for being with us here today. And you who are watching, go to fitonraw.com and see all the great stuff that Swayze has to offer you there. Thank you so much, Swayze. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much for having me. Bye.